Mason laughed when I handed in my resignation. "You're nothing without this company, Roy." I smiled and said, "You're right. Thank you for everything." His words hit exactly where he intended them to. 25 years of dedication reduced to mockery in an instant. My name is Roy Patterson, and I'm 53 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was senior project manager at what everyone considered the top engineering firm in East Texas. What Mason didn't know that morning was how much I needed this job to work out. See, my divorce had been finalized 18 months earlier. The settlement left me paying $1,800 monthly alimony to my ex-wife, Diane, plus covering half of my kids' college expenses. My daughter Holly just turned 16 and started looking at universities, the expensive ones that cost $35,000 a year. My son Ryan is 14 and already talking about following his sister to college. On top of that, my father had a stroke last year. Even with Medicare, his physical therapy and medications run about $500 monthly. At 53, I was essentially supporting 3 generations on a senior manager's salary that had barely grown in 5 years. My base was $89,000, decent enough for most folks, but not enough for what life was throwing at me. Every month felt like walking a financial tightrope with no safety net. "I mean it," Roy Mason continued, leaning back in his chair with that smile I'd grown to recognize, the one that appeared when he sensed weakness. "Who else would hire someone your age with outdated military methods? We took a chance on you when others wouldn't. Outdated military methods." The phrase hung in the air while my mind flashed back to the safety protocols I'd developed over the past 4 years. The foundation inspection framework that reduced structural failures by 22%. The equipment maintenance schedule that cut accidents by 18%. The risk assessment model that prevented 3 potential fatalities last year alone, all presented to clients with Mason's name attached as the innovative project lead. Mason was 35, fresh MBA from Dallas, came from money. His daddy owned half the commercial real estate in East Texas. The kind of guy who'd never worked a construction site in his life, but somehow knew better than those of us who'd been building things since before he could drive. "Timing is unfortunate," he added, tapping his gold pen against my letter. "The expansion into Oklahoma markets needs someone with fresh thinking. Not that you were ever really in consideration for project lead, but I had been." I'd spent 8 months researching that expansion opportunity, created a comprehensive safety analysis that the executive committee called revolutionary. My application for project lead had mysteriously vanished from HR's system twice. The position eventually went to Mason's former fraternity brother from SMU, who'd been with the company exactly 6 weeks and couldn't tell a load-bearing beam from a support column. "I appreciate the opportunities you've given me," I said, maintaining eye contact despite feeling my jaw clench. This was a habit I'd picked up in Iraq, looking men in the eye when they tried to intimidate you. "This feels like the right time for a change. Running away because you can't adapt to modern business," he said, sliding my letter into a drawer like it was contaminated. "Go ahead, I'll enjoy watching you fail. At your age, starting over won't be easy. Here's the thing Mason didn't know. What none of them knew was that for the past 4 months, I'd been meeting with Victor Rodriguez during my lunch breaks. And Victor wasn't just anyone in our industry. Let me back up a bit. I'd been passed over for the VP position 4 times in the past 5 years. Each time they brought in someone younger with less experience. Each time they used safety procedures I developed and called them innovative management approaches. The first time it happened, I was disappointed. The second time, I was frustrated. The third time, I started to see a pattern. The fourth time, I knew exactly what was happening. My ex-wife, Diane, had been after me about it during one of our conversations about Holly's college plans. "Roy, you've been doing the same job for years while younger people move past you," she'd said during a particularly tense phone call about tuition planning. "Maybe it's time to face reality about where your career is heading." That conversation stung because she wasn't entirely wrong. I'd been loyal to the company for 25 years, starting as a junior engineer right out of the Army at 28. I'd worked my way up steadily through every level, earned my PE license while working full-time, built relationships with major clients across 3 states, developed protocols that kept people alive on dangerous job sites. But somewhere along the way, loyalty became an expectation rather than an asset. The worst part was watching my kids start to question their dad's career choices. Ryan had asked me just last month, "Dad, if you're so good at your job, why don't you make more money than Mason?" Holly was more direct. All my friends' parents seemed to be advancing in their careers. Why are you still in the same position you were in when I was little? Those questions hit harder than any performance review ever could. When your own kids start wondering if their father is a failure, you know something's gotta change. The day I handed in my resignation started like any other. I arrived at 6:45 a.m., reviewed project updates from 3 different construction sites, and prepared for the quarterly safety meeting. But at lunch, I did what I'd been doing for the past 4 months. I walked 6 blocks to a small diner called Murphy's Corner, tucked between a hardware store and a barber shop that had been cutting hair since 1962. Most of my colleagues assumed I was hitting the gym or running errands during these breaks. Nobody questioned why I stopped joining team lunches at the fancy steakhouse where Mason liked to hold court. Nobody noticed when I returned with notebooks full of structural calculations and safety assessments. Nobody suspected I was meeting with Victor Rodriguez. Victor had transformed our entire industry 15 years ago before stepping back from public life. Rumors about his semi-retirement had circulated for years. Some said health issues, others mentioned family crisis. A few suggested secret government consulting work. The truth turned out to be both simpler and more complex than any of the rumors. Our first meeting had been completely by accident. I'd attended a veterans business symposium that most professionals in our field considered too theoretical for practical application. The kind of event where academics talked about leadership principles while guys like me wondered how any of it applied to keeping workers safe on a construction site. The session ran long and I found myself alone with the moderator afterward, asking questions about load-bearing calculations that apparently nobody had thought to ask before. Specifically, I wanted to know why we were still using safety factors developed in the 1980s when modern materials and construction methods had evolved so dramatically. That's when the moderator introduced me to Victor, who'd been quietly observing from the back corner of the room. Victor Rodriguez was maybe 60. Built like he'd spent time carrying heavy equipment, with the kind of weathered hands that told you he'd done real work before he started telling other people how to do it. You see structural weaknesses others miss. He told me that day, studying me with sharp, intelligent eyes that reminded me of my old battalion commander. That's rare at the senior level. Most people your age have learned to follow established safety codes without questioning whether they're actually the best approach. That initial conversation led to another meeting, then another. For 4 months, Victor and I met during my lunch breaks discussing industry evolution and engineering possibilities. I never mentioned my workplace struggles during those early meetings. Instead, I focused on solutions, innovative approaches, and safety opportunities that excited me despite the frustration I was feeling at work. Victor had a way of asking questions that made me think differently about problems I'd been wrestling with for years. Most senior engineers get comfortable with what passes inspection, he told me during our 3rd meeting. They stop pushing boundaries because they found a formula that keeps them employed and out of lawsuits. You're different. The thing is, I needed those meetings more than I initially realized. At home, conversations with Diane were mostly about logistics even after the divorce. Who was picking up the kids from what activity? How we were going to handle Holly's college applications, whether I could cover an extra therapy session for my father when his insurance ran short. At work, I felt invisible despite being one of the most experienced people on the team. But with Victor, I felt heard in a way I hadn't experienced in years. He'd challenged my thinking in ways that made me sharper, not defensive. When I presented an idea for improving foundation inspection protocols, he didn't just nod politely like my colleagues did. He asked tough questions that forced me to think deeper. What happens if soil conditions shift unexpectedly during construction? How do you maintain safety standards while ensuring project deadlines that keep everyone employed? What metrics would prove this approach prevents more accidents than traditional methods? Those weren't gotcha questions designed to make me look stupid. They were the kinds of questions that helped me build bulletproof safety systems that could actually be implemented in the real world. What I didn't realize during those early meetings was that Victor hadn't actually retired from engineering. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations to identify the right person to implement his vision for the next evolution of construction safety consulting. He was essentially interviewing candidates, but not in any conventional way that would tip them off or create artificial pressure. I've been watching how different minds approach systematic safety problems, he explained during our 15th meeting over chicken-fried steak and coffee that was strong enough to wake the dead. Most experienced people stick to proven protocols because they're afraid of liability at this stage in their careers. They've got mortgages, kids heading to college, parents who need medical care. The last thing they want is to stick their neck out with something innovative that might fail. He paused, studying my reaction. You build new approaches because you're still curious about what's possible. Even with all that financial pressure, the conversation shifted something in our relationship. Instead of general industry discussions, he started presenting me with specific scenarios, real challenges from his network of former clients who were looking for fresh solutions to complex safety problems. One scenario involved a construction company struggling with equipment failure patterns that were causing delays and safety concerns. Traditional approaches focused on maintenance schedules and replacement cycles based on manufacturer recommendations. Victor asked me to think differently. What if the problem isn't equipment reliability, but equipment utilization patterns that don't account for the specific demands of different job sites? I spent a week developing a framework that treated machinery like living systems rather than mechanical tools with fixed lifespans. Instead of just following manufacturer schedules, companies would build adaptive maintenance networks that could shift and evolve based on real-time usage data, environmental conditions, and the specific demands of each project. This is exactly the kind of thinking our industry needs, Victor said when I presented the concept the following week, but most engineering firms would never let a senior manager pursue something this innovative. They'd want it simplified into a standard checklist they could sell repeatedly to different clients without having to think about customization. He was absolutely right. At my company, innovation meant finding new ways to apply old safety codes that everyone was already familiar with. Real innovation, the kind that required months of development and testing with actual clients willing to try something different, was considered too risky for anyone below the VP level. And as I'd learned repeatedly, the VP level wasn't interested in ideas that came from people like me. During our 20th meeting, Victor shared something that changed my perspective completely about what had been happening in my career and why these lunch meetings felt so different from my regular work experience. I've been conducting informal research for the past 18 months, he said, cutting his cornbread with the precision of someone who'd learned to make every bite count. Speaking with board members from major engineering firms across Texas and Oklahoma, asking about untapped potential within their organizations, I felt my stomach drop. Was this some kind of corporate intelligence gathering that I'd accidentally gotten involved in? Had I been sharing proprietary information without realizing it? One board member mentioned a senior manager who consistently submitted brilliant safety proposals that never seemed to get implemented. Victor continued, watching my reaction carefully. Proposals that were years ahead of what their competitors were offering, but somehow never made it past the executive level. The pieces started falling into place. Pete Morris, one of our board members, had always been supportive of my work during the few interactions we'd had. He'd made several comments over the years about wishing the company would be more aggressive in pursuing innovative safety approaches instead of just following industry standards. Pete provided copies of some of those proposals. Victor continued, his voice careful and measured. Not to share confidential information, but to demonstrate how established companies sometimes fail to recognize the talent they already have. That's when I realized he'd been watching my work for over 18 months before we ever met. Our accidental encounter at the Veterans Symposium hadn't been accidental at all. I don't understand, I said, setting down my coffee cup harder than I intended. Why go through all this effort? Because I'm putting together a new kind of engineering firm, he explained, leaning forward with the intensity I remembered from military briefings. One that prioritizes safety innovation over billable hours. One that gives experienced professionals the freedom to pursue transformational protocols rather than incremental improvements that just check regulatory boxes. Victor outlined his vision over the next hour. A boutique firm that would work exclusively with companies ready to make substantial safety investments rather than minor code compliance adjustments. The client base would be smaller but more committed to actual change. The projects would be longer term but more impactful. The team would be senior-level professionals who were tired of having their expertise underutilized by companies more interested in protecting their profit margins than their workers. I need someone to head safety implementation, he said, studying my reaction. Someone who understands both the theoretical frameworks and the practical challenges of execution. Someone who's been frustrated by the limitations of traditional engineering but hasn't lost the drive to innovate. The position came with a base salary of $119,000, about 34% more than I was making. More importantly, it included equity in the company and bonuses tied to measurable safety outcomes rather than project completion deadlines that forced corners to be cut. The catch, Victor said, is that this requires complete confidentiality until we're ready for public launch. The industry doesn't respond well to stealth startups, especially ones founded by people who supposedly retired. I thought about my conversation with Diane the week before. Holly needed to submit college applications soon, and we'd been arguing about whether she should apply to her dream schools or focus on more affordable options that might leave her settling for less than she was capable of achieving. Ryan was watching these discussions, probably wondering if he'd face the same financial limitations in a few years. My father had been asking if I was satisfied at work during one of his better days when the stroke symptoms weren't affecting his speech. One of those questions that comes when someone's health scare makes them think about life priorities and whether the people they love are wasting their time on things that don't matter. I'd been deflecting the question because I didn't know how to answer it honestly without admitting that I felt like I was failing everyone who depended on me. "Can I think about this?" I asked Victor. "Of course," he said, "but I need an answer within 2 weeks. We're planning to announce the company formation in early December, and I need to know if you're my lead safety engineer." That night, I sat in my apartment, the smaller place I'd moved to after the divorce to keep the mortgage payments manageable, and tried to figure out what scared me more. Staying in a job where I felt invisible and undervalued, or taking a risk that could either solve my family's financial pressures or make them dramatically worse if the startup failed. The decision crystallized 2 days before I resigned during a safety meeting where Mason presented his new approach to equipment maintenance scheduling. It was the exact framework I'd submitted 8 months earlier, the one he'd rejected as too complex for field implementation. Watching him receive praise for my work while I sat silent in the back of the room, taking notes on my own ideas being presented as his innovation, I realized I'd already made my choice. The day after my resignation, Mason sent me an email that I still remember word for word. "When you fail out there, don't come crawling back expecting sympathy or references. You've burned this bridge completely." I didn't respond. Instead, I spent the next 3 weeks training my replacement, Owen Clark, who honestly deserved better guidance than he was going to get from Mason's leadership style. Owen was sharp, reminded me of myself 25 years earlier. Eager, hardworking, and probably destined to watch his ideas get credited to someone else, unless he learned to navigate office politics better than I had. "Why are you really leaving?" Owen asked me during one of our training sessions while we reviewed the safety protocols for the Oklahoma expansion project. "Everyone says you don't have another job lined up, and that doesn't make sense for someone with your responsibilities. Sometimes you have to take a leap to find out where you'll land," I told him. It wasn't the full truth, but it was all I could share under the confidentiality agreement. My colleagues whispered about my decision during those final weeks. Most thought I was having some kind of midlife crisis, finally snapping under the pressure of supporting multiple generations on a salary that hadn't grown with my responsibilities. Diane was more direct when I told her about the resignation during our weekly check-in about the kids. "Roy, this is exactly what I was worried about," she said, her voice carrying the mixture of concern and frustration that had characterized too many of our conversations during the last years of our marriage. "You're 53 years old with 2 kids who need college funding and a father who needs medical care. This isn't the time for career experiments." I wanted to tell her about Victor's offer, but the confidentiality agreement was ironclad. All I could say was, "I have a plan. Trust me on this." "Trust you," she laughed, but not in a mean way. More like someone who'd heard promises before that hadn't worked out. "I trusted you to provide stability for our family for 18 years, Roy. You're quitting your job without telling me what comes next." She wasn't wrong to be concerned. From her perspective, I looked like a guy having a breakdown, making impulsive decisions that could affect everyone who depended on me. But I also knew that staying at the company meant watching my expertise get devalued for another 10 to 15 years until I was old enough to retire with a pension that wouldn't cover the lifestyle my family deserved. Monday morning, I walked into Victor's headquarters, a converted warehouse space in the industrial district with high ceilings and an open floor plan that reminded me of the engineering offices I'd worked in during my Army days. 6 senior engineers were waiting around a conference table, people Victor had recruited from various firms across the region. "Before we begin," Victor said, "I want everyone to understand what we're building here. This isn't about working longer hours for higher billing rates. This is about transforming how safety engineering actually works." He outlined our approach. Instead of selling standardized safety audits to dozens of clients, we would develop truly customized protocols for a smaller number of companies willing to invest in substantial risk reduction. Projects would typically run 12 to 18 months instead of 3 to 6 months. Fees would be higher, but results would be measurable and transformational. "Roy will be heading our safety implementation team," Victor announced. He's going to walk us through the framework that will differentiate us from traditional engineering firms. For the first time in my career, I presented my ideas without worrying about someone else taking credit. The equipment maintenance model I developed during my meetings with Victor, the adaptive safety structure that could help companies respond to changing site conditions. The risk assessment strategy that focused on preventing accidents rather than just documenting compliance after something went wrong. When I finished, the room broke into discussion. Real discussion, not the polite nodding I was used to. These were experienced professionals who understood both the potential and the challenges of what we were proposing. Over the next 8 weeks, we refined our approach and began reaching out to potential clients. The response was better than we'd hoped. Companies that had been burned by cookie-cutter safety consultants were interested in our longer-term results-focused model. We selected 15 companies for our pilot program using a completely anonymous evaluation process. Companies submitted proposals describing their challenges without knowing who would review them. Our team assessed each submission based on specific criteria: complexity of the challenge, commitment to safety investment, leadership support, and potential for measurable impact. Without seeing company names until after scoring was complete, when the final list was compiled and names were revealed, my former company wasn't included. Their proposal had scored in the bottom 25% of submissions. The next morning, Mason called my personal phone. "Roy," he said, using that fake friendly tone I remembered well. "I've been trying to reach you through Victor's office. I've been busy." I replied, keeping my voice neutral while wondering how he'd gotten my number. "I wanted to congratulate you personally working with Victor Rodriguez. That's quite an achievement for someone at your experience level." At my experience level, even when he was trying to be nice, he couldn't resist the condescension. "Thank you," I said, offering nothing more. "I noticed our company wasn't selected for your pilot program," he continued. "There must have been some kind of oversight. Our submission clearly met all the criteria you published." The selection process was completely anonymous, Mason. No names were attached to proposals during evaluation. Every submission was judged purely on safety merit. The silence that followed told me everything. Their proposal hadn't been good enough, not because I'd manipulated anything, but because their safety thinking wasn't innovative enough to qualify. The irony wasn't lost on me. If Mason had implemented my frameworks during my time there instead of burying them, they might have made the cut. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Industry Safety Review, the leading trade publication in our sector, published an interview with Mason that made my phone explode with notifications from former colleagues. In the interview, he claimed that the innovation at the heart of Victor's engineering approach had actually originated in his department. "The fundamental framework was developed under my leadership," Mason stated. "While certain elements have been modified, the core safety concept emerged from our team's work last year." I sat at my desk staring at his words until I couldn't focus anymore. This wasn't just about recognition, it threatened our entire project's credibility. If people believed we'd simply repurposed existing work, our reputation would be destroyed before we'd even established it. Victor called an emergency team meeting within 2 hours of the article going live. "Legal is preparing a cease and desist letter," he said. "We need to address this immediately." "No," I said, surprising myself. "That's exactly what he wants. To force us to reveal project details prematurely and get drawn into a public dispute. We need a different approach." The team looked at me expectantly. For the first time, I shared the complete history, how Mason had systematically buried my proposals while claiming credit for my successful work. How the innovation they were now implementing had been rejected repeatedly when I'd presented it at my former company. "I have another idea," I said. "One that solves multiple problems at once." My plan was straightforward but effective. Rather than engage in public disputes over ownership, we would accelerate our timeline for the next phase, expanding our pilot program to include 10 additional companies. We would open applications to all qualified organizations and evaluate them through the same anonymous process. "If Mason's company truly understands the innovation as well as he claims," I explained, "their next proposal should reflect that understanding. If not, they'll expose their own deception." The announcement of our expanded pilot went out the next morning. Applications flooded in, including one from my former company, submitted within 3 hours of the announcement. The evaluation team, which didn't include me to ensure complete impartiality, reviewed each submission over 5 days. When the results came in, Mason's company scored in the bottom 20% of all applicants. Their proposal demonstrated fundamental misunderstanding of the very innovation he claimed they'd developed. But rather than publicizing this failure, I suggested something else entirely. Invite Mason to our quarterly review meeting, I told Victor. Let him present his company's understanding of our approach to all the pilot companies and investors. The invitation went out with language Mason couldn't refuse without losing face. An opportunity to share insights as a thought leader at a gathering of industry innovators. He accepted immediately. The quarterly review was scheduled at our headquarters with representatives from all 25 pilot companies, plus our investor group. Mason arrived early, dressed impeccably as always. When he saw me, he pulled me aside. I wasn't expecting to see you presenting at a meeting this high level, he said. Will you be handling logistics? I smiled. Not exactly. Before I could explain, Victor called the meeting to order. He welcomed everyone, outlined the agenda, then introduced me not just as Chief Safety Officer, but as the lead architect of our entire engineering framework. Roy will guide us through the safety foundations before we hear from each company about their implementation experience, Victor announced. I watched Mason's expression freeze somewhere between shock and disbelief as I took center position. I outlined the theoretical foundations, practical applications, and preliminary results from our first pilot group, the 109 accident reduction, the 15% decrease in insurance costs, the 92% client satisfaction rates that exceeded industry standards. When I finished, the room burst into applause, everyone except Mason, who stared at his notebook like it contained nuclear launch codes. Finally, it was Mason's turn. Victor introduced him as representing a company interested in joining the program and invited him to share his understanding of how our innovation would integrate with his operations. He stood slowly, adjusting his tie with the same nervous gesture I'd seen 100 times in staff meetings. Actually, Mason, I'd love to hear more about your claim that your team originated this approach. Could you walk us through the specific elements you developed? The room went completely silent. Mason's confident expression crumbled as he realized he was trapped. He fumbled through vague statements about innovative methodologies while avoiding any concrete specifics. With each evasion, his credibility visibly disintegrated. Then Victor stepped in with the moment that ended everything. He displayed a comprehensive timeline showing the evolution of our approach, including my original rejected proposals with Mason's dismissive margin notes. 6 months later, I received an email from Pete Morris. Your former company has implemented comprehensive attribution policies, he wrote. Mason's replacement credits your departure as the catalyst for cultural transformation throughout their organization. At 53, I learned that being undervalued isn't a permanent condition. It's just information about where you currently are, not where you're capable of going. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's building something so successful that their attempts to diminish you only highlight their own limitations. At 53, I learned that being undervalued isn't a permanent condition, it's just information about where you currently are, not where you're capable of going. Sometimes the greatest gift a toxic workplace can give you is making the decision to leave so obvious that even fear can't hold you back.